Greetings and welcome to Pop Culture Beast's Halloween Horror Picks. I'm your host, Ryan Stockstead, and today's episode is brought to you by Rogue Division, an independent production company dedicated to exploring the expanse of new media with entertaining, story-driven content. Subscribe to their YouTube channel for comedy skits, short films, documentaries, and web series. And be sure also to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter so that you don't miss a second of the action. Today we're going to talk about my favorite horror movie of all time, a classic of the genre that some people even go so far as to call the first slasher movie.
The murderer, you see, crept in here very slowly. Of course, the shower was on, there was no sound, and
Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, 1960. I'm not sure I'd quite agree with those who label it the first slasher, which would mean it beats movies like Halloween and Black Christmas by more than a decade, close to 2 decades really. But it certainly contains slasher elements. Psycho would go on to spawn 3 sequels, a TV pilot movie with Bud Cort, a 90s remake, of which the less said the better, a TV show, and a biopic starring Anthony Hopkins. Psycho was directed by Alfred Hitchcock from a screenplay by Joseph Stefano. It was based upon the 1959 novel by Robert Bloch, which was inspired by the real-life crimes of Ed Gein. Incidentally, many other movies similarly took inspiration from Gein, including Deranged, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Silence of the Lambs, House of a Thousand Corpses, and others. Clive Barker has described Gein in terms of being part of America's mythology, and Psycho was the first film to explore that mythology. The film famously opens in Phoenix, Arizona on December the 11th at 2:43 p.m. Hitch often opened his movies in the midst of normalcy and the seeming mundane, starting generally and then getting increasingly more specific, as if to suggest this could be any city, any building, any room, any couple. But of course, this isn't just any couple. This is Janet Leigh and John Gavin as Marion Crane and Sam Loomis, unmarried lovers meeting secretly in a cheap motel.
Oh, Sam, I hate having to be with you in a place like this.
Well, I've heard of married couples who deliberately spend an occasional night in a cheap hotel.
When you're married, you can do a lot of things deliberately.
You sure talk like a girl who's been married.
Sam, this is the last time.
Yeah? For what?
For this. Meeting you in secret so we can be secretive. You come down here on business trips, and we steal lunch hours.
Marion wants to be married, but Sam doesn't have any money. Later, at the office, Marion finds herself responsible for depositing $40,000 cash, enough money to solve her problems.
I'm buying this house for my baby's wedding present. $40,000 cash. Now that's not buying happiness, that's just buying off unhappiness. I never carry more than I can afford to lose. Count 'em.
I declare.
I don't. That's how I get to keep it.
In a moment of madness, Marion takes the money and leaves town heading for Sam. When it starts to rain, she pulls over and checks into a motel.
You have a vacancy?
Oh, we have 12 vacancies. 12 cabins, 12 vacancies.
Anthony Perkins plays Norman Bates, the lonely owner of the Bates Motel, who cares for his sick, domineering mother up at the big house on the hill when he isn't stuffing birds, changing the linens, and keeping up with the formalities of running the place.
You eat like a bird.
You know, of course.
No, not really. Anyway, I hear the expression eats like a bird. It's really a falsity. Because birds really eat a tremendous lot. But I don't really know anything about birds. My hobby is stuffing things.
Marion quickly realizes that she's made a big mistake by stealing the money. And after a long chat with Norman, she decides to bring the money back. But first, she takes a nice, cleansing shower. Psycho hinges on two spontaneous crimes. The first, in which Marion steals the money, and the second, in which she's murdered by Norman's mother.
Mother! Oh, God! Mother! Blood! Blood!
One of my favorite sequences in all of cinema is the 10 wordless minutes following the shower scene, as Norman methodically cleans the crime scene and disposes of the evidence. It's masterfully photographed and edited, and it pivots the sympathy of the audience from Marion to Norman. We feel terrible for her, but we can't help but root for Norman. As the scene unfolds, we worry that he'll get caught protecting his mother. It's incredibly suspenseful. The rest of the movie finds Norman straining under increased scrutiny. He squirms while being questioned about Marion's disappearance by Sam and Vera Miles as Marion's sister, Lila, and also by a private investigator, played wonderfully by Martin Balsam.
And she went straight to sleep and left early the next morning.
Well, how early?
Oh, very early.
Mm-hmm. Which morning was that?
The next morning, Sunday.
I see.
At the time of its release, Psycho pushed the boundaries of how much sex and violence could be depicted in American cinema. There were certainly sleazy and trashy films before this, but nothing quite as explicit as Psycho. In fact, Hitchcock had noted the success of other low-budget pictures, and he reportedly wondered what would happen if someone with talent took a stab at it. The success of Psycho arguably paved the way for more explicit depictions of sex and violence in films such as William Castle's Homicidal and the Herschel Gordon Lewis gore-fest Blood Feast. In the 1984 revised edition of Francois Truffaut's excellent book, simply titled Hitchcock, he observes that Hitch filmed his love scenes like murder scenes, and his murder scenes like love scenes. He adds that, quote, "In Hitchcock's cinema, which is definitely more sexual than sensual, to make love and to die are one and the same," end of quote. He refers, of course, to Hitchcock's entire body of work, but it's certainly a valid observation in regards to Psycho. Psycho is a total masterpiece of horror cinema, and arguably one of the greatest movies ever made. The list of films directly inspired by it includes Halloween, Funeral Home, Santa Sangre, Scream, Pulp Fiction, and many others, including pretty much everything by Brian De Palma. If you haven't seen it yet, what are you waiting for? Psycho gets my highest recommendation this Halloween. The version that I watched is the widescreen collector's edition DVD from 1998, and this includes a really cool 94-minute long makings of documentary. But this feature is included on many of the subsequent releases too, and Universal puts out a new disc every few years or so. Most recently, a 2014 Blu-ray, including a limited edition steelbook with a hideous pink cover, which you can still pick up for around 10 or 15 bucks online.
It's not as if she were a maniac, a raving thing. She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes.
Thanks for watching the final episode of Season 2 of Pop Culture Beast's Halloween Horror Picks. I hope you enjoyed watching the show. We certainly enjoyed making it. I'm your host, Ryan Stockstead. Be sure to like Halloween Horror Picks on Facebook and subscribe right here on the Pop Culture Beast YouTube channel for any future episodes. And also, be sure to check out the playlist to catch any episodes you may have missed. Thanks again for watching. Watch horror movies. I'll see you next time.